Okay, welcome to episode 5 of Betty Draper Sucks. I'm your host, Dave. Well, I'm your co-host, Dave. With me is my other co-host, Cam. How's it going?
I'm your co-host. The audience is not our co-host, but otherwise, it's going pretty good.
Cool. This week we've got new girls to talk about. We've got new Parks and Recreation, and we've also got the regular coverage of Game of Thrones and Mad Men. We were going to talk about Veep, but a certain co-host of mine neglected to watch it.
Julia Louis-Dreyfus hates me, so I decided not to watch that show.
Yeah, you've got a long and complicated relationship with her.
I really do.
Yeah, it's not something that either of you can deal with on a sort of upfront basis. So we'll talk about girls first. What did you think about episode 2?
All right, I like this episode. It was a lot better than the first one, even though the pilot was good. Besides the stupid shit that people said about it, the whole abortion clinic scene was something that the show will probably heavily feature, with all its characters interacting in some environment that they're all not used to be in. And of course, I think the show was highlighted by the highly awkward and incredible scene where she's getting that job interview and she's nailing it and she completely fucks it up at the end.
I love that scene. That was that was like something out of sort of Extras or Curb. It was a sort of real classic awkward comedy situation.
It was like a Larry David type situation when everything's going good and then he says nigger or something.
Yeah.
Well, what was that when
they're playing poker? When they're playing poker and he calls that guy cunt.
Oh yeah. No, that one
what
episode.
What a cunt! That was such a good hand. What a cunt!
They go to the who is it? He's going to go in the musical with, I forget the guy's name.
Ben Stiller.
Yeah, no, but the other guy, the older guy.
David. Oh no, Mel Brooks.
Mel Brooks. Yeah, and then he's offending the hell out of the receptionist and going way too far. That show does have a lot of a Curb feel to it. It's just the writing is so good though. It's so real. And
I like the characters. The characters have all got likable and unlikable aspects to their personalities, and the audience has got to toss up like which one you can sort of identify with more, and it makes if it makes you feel like you're meeting a real person, because you meet a real person and you see their good side and you see their bad side, and then you sort of think, okay, which one is bigger than the other one, and how does that make me feel about this person? And it makes you feel much more connected to these fictional people than a lot of other, especially comedy shows do.
But yeah, I thought a big important line in the series or the episode was towards the end when Hannah was getting her STD test, and she's explaining about how in her mind that it would almost be good to have AIDS, and you see the nurse or whatever. It's just like, you couldn't pay me to be 24 again, and it's just all this like, it's just revealing how into herself and how like self-centered that Hannah is, and then that's the kind of a mindset, or the prevailing mindset in mid-20s people. They don't see outside of their own world. Yeah. Everything. They're just so self-important.
All four characters have all got their own thing going on, and when it comes to each other, they're only sort of interested on a semi sort of superficial level. But I'm definitely looking forward to the rest of this season. I'm not sure how many episodes there are going to be. Probably something like 8 or 9.
I think I saw there's like 10 at least.
Oh, okay. Most HBO comedies have normally got like 9 or 10 episodes a season, I think. But it's good to see another comedy added to HBO's impressive roster. And with Veep as well, there's another feather in their cap.
We'll talk about Veep next week.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to try to condense things here. I'm going to switch over to Parks and Recreation finally being back.
I'm so happy.
I'm very happy.
What a great return as well. It's such a great episode.
The return of the show was it was right there. The first scene was great, and really
with
just
Tom's apartment. Yeah.
Just in a nutshell, what the show is about, and how much Leslie loves amenities, and who wants to be in an apartment that's 80 all the time? I mean, come on,
Yeah.
70, maybe 80?
It's a bit warm, yeah.
80 is a bit warm.
It's coming from a Queenslander.
Especially from all the, especially considering all the blankets and shit they were laying in.
Yeah. Girls get cold, though. That's the deal.
Oh, God, tell me about it.
That's why they love it so much. And that's why he makes it that way. Because he wants all the girls to, like, be in love with his place.
Well, we had... it's funny the character progression we're seeing from April now. A couple of seasons ago, April would barely look and bat an eye at anything to actually do with the Parks Department. And now that Leslie's running for office, you see April actually in charge of it and leading meetings and holding a whole pet adoption thing that completely falls apart, and she cares that it falls apart.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's this show trying to turn her into the next Leslie that you can tell Leslie hates a lot of things about government, but the thing that she's behind, she really loves, and she's really obsessively into them. And is April going to be that same kind of way? And I also loved that another good part of Tom's character went over there and made her feel better, and I thought that was a nice scene. It's all scenes like that in this show. I also really liked Tom coming to comfort April, and it's just another one of an awkward relationship that Tom and April really have, but the characters' relationships are all realistic. And
that kind of paralleled a scene from season 2, I think it was, to me, where Leslie's trying to. She's going to a meeting or some sort of event, and something doesn't go well, and Tom comforts her then as well. And it's good to see the sort of parallel between Tom comforting Leslie and then in this episode comforting April.
I don't know if I talked about it with Ben or it was on last week, but I think he's the most developed and well-rounded character in the show. He's the only one who really has those lows and highs. And the whole scene. Well, the whole scene when he was realizing, finally coming to terms that Wendy is isn't his wife really, it never really was his wife, and he's down, and I think he's one of the more human ones. Him and Leslie, obviously.
Yeah. I think you're probably right. Some of the
you can disagree if you want.
No, I think you're right. I don't think when you say he's the most well-rounded character, I think that kind of belittles some of the other characters who are also well-rounded, like Ron, and I mean, although we don't see all that much of him, Jerry.
Jerry.
I miss Jerry in this episode. Even when he's only in it very briefly, his appearances always make me laugh. I think Jerry's best when he's in the sidelines, because that's where he gets pushed to as a person.
The thing that separates Parks and Recreation from shows like The Office is that they can have their foil characters, but they can still have their foil characters have a singular vision, unlike The Office with Kevin, who's smart and stupid, and he's whatever the writers want him to be in any situation. But each character on the show has its own, its own voice and its own way of thinking that is logical, and it's not just some kind of foil or device for the writers.
Yeah, it all makes sense together, because they've got...
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say it all makes sense together because they've got their own. Each character's got its own sort of position, and they don't have to use one character to display different sides of things. They can use a different character because they know the character well, and they know that that character would do that sort of thing realistically. They know their characters much better than The Office does, even though they haven't been on the air for as long.
All right, well, let's run through the plot real quick of the episode so that we're not just talking about tangential ideas. You see Leslie trying to save the Parks Department budget. That results in Anne, or that's her name, right?
Rashida Jones's character? Yes.
It was Anne, right? Yeah. I don't know, like I said, a little out of it. She about to lose her job. So Leslie's doing all this shit, moving around, and then she creates she adopts the pets, or the animals from the shelter, which results in April doing her adoption. But she also creates a brilliant little part of political strategy, allowing Bobby Newport to keep the shelter running and to give him a little bump, but she's obviously going to destroy him in the debate. And that
I can't wait for that episode.
Personally, I want this whole this plot, this whole everything to resolve itself, because I think the show is better when it doesn't have these long arcing plots like it did in season 1, and then it kind of it kind of restricts the characters to a certain roles and certain storylines. And I wish the show would kind of go back to season 3, where there were still arcs, but they were shorter, like 2-3 episode arcs. Instead of this long season-ending arc. And
it's not doing a bad job of it, though, I think.
Well, it's not doing a bad job of it at all. It's still outstanding. But I think it's limiting the show's potential with, the types of things Leslie could be doing. And hopefully she loses, or if she wins, then they can pull it off some way. But I don't. If she wins, I don't know. Does that ever really work in shows?
I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure. I know that the writers have written 2 different finales, and I don't think they've actually made their mind up of which way they're going to go yet. If she's going to win or lose, but I think it could work either way. I think the characters in the show are strong enough to hold together no matter what happens. The relationships that they've got are strong, and I think that either way would still have a great 5th season, if there was a 5th season, which we hope there will be. Just going back to what you said before about how Leslie adopts all the pets, that actually reminded me of this the pilot of 30 Rock, where there's a scene right at the beginning where Liz gets wronged by somebody at a hot dog stand. And so she buys all of the hot dogs from the hot dog stand so that nobody else can have anything. And it just kind of reminded me of that, how they're both so dedicated to taking the high road and to making everything as right as it possibly can be, like these 2 lead powerful female characters. And I think that it sort of underlies the friendship between the two actors that play them. Anyway,
to close, I think that if the show won't get stale, I mean, we already are almost through 5 seasons, we might need something like Leslie getting a different job, and maybe April or somebody becoming the new boss. And
don't forget Ron becoming city manager as well.
Yeah, which maybe these types of changes can keep the show fresh, but I think it's still fresh. But anyway, great episode, and I can't wait for the rest of the season.
Yeah, me too.
All right, we have some. I believe we can cut in real quick and do some community questions. We got a couple questions this week. You want to go ahead and throw the first one at us, Dave?
Okay, so the first question
realistic
this week,
and dark tones one. Yeah.
The first question from this week is from the main man Andres. It says, "Seems like many shows these days hold on to very realistic and dark tones to combat cliches. Do you feel like this hinders shows from developing imaginative storylines and characters that an audience can not only relate to but also dream with?"
That's a good question. Realistic and dark tones, it's kind of... I'm not exactly sure. How do you feel about that, Dave?
I think it's not just a theme that's in TV. I think it's a theme that's in the world in 2012.
Yeah, all media, all types of...
Yeah, I think it's kind of it's a counterpoint to the generation that's currently making stuff grew up in the 80s, when everything was, the media was very upbeat. Every kids show had a public service announcement. Every adult show had a freeze frame and all the characters smiling at the end credits. And it's kind of
I miss that.
Yeah,
I miss those long whimsical intros, like the Full House intro, the sitcom me and Moonmeg are going to make.
Where
have one of those.
Where the characters sort of look down and then look up, and then they have a big grin, and then it shows the actor's name on the screen in the opening credits.
I don't know if it was just the media or the pervasive thought at the time, but I don't remember the world being as positive as you would think it was looking at the shows and everything.
That's right. Me neither. So I think,
but I mean, the realistic and dark tones. I mean, I think we still have those in fantasy stories, like in Game of Thrones. I mean, we'll talk about this week's app obviously in a couple minutes, and how just dark and grim that shit is. But I think it's possible, and I think that the best stories come out of realistic, with a dark tone, because it's easier to relate to, and it's more emotional, and it carries more weight. Any more thoughts?
Yeah, I was going to just about realism. I think that realism is fine if it serves the story and serves the characters. I don't think that. I mean, obviously, realistic the way that people behave realistically is always necessary. Otherwise, you just feel like you're watching something from a parallel universe. But I don't think that necessarily realistic settings are required for something to be, emotionally, for you to be able to connect emotionally to it, or for it to resonate with you.
Well, that's not what I'm saying, but just with all media and everything, just realism is being strived for. I mean, look at video games. Look at the most popular video games right now, shooting games, and like how close to the reality are those attempting to be? And of course, you've got sports video games.
Bold letters.
Sports video games are always really popular, and those are simulations of reality. And music. I mean, the popular music isn't exactly the most upbeat stuff.
Yeah.
So I think it's a pervasive tone in society today, and that's what contributes to the media and the art that's coming out. The second question we have from a guy named Rich Lashley, as you know him. It is a loaded question that I cannot wait to discuss. He asks, what are your feelings towards AMC making another season of Breaking Bad? Do you feel that the show will be able to offer anything new in the 5th season, or has it already run its course? Predictions also? Dave?
Has the show run its course? Emphatically, yes. But I don't blame I don't blame the writers for wanting a 5th season, because they're obviously having a great time. The actors are obviously having a great time. I think the show is a lot more self-serving than it used to be. And I don't think that the 5th season is going to be good, but I'm probably still going to watch it, because even Breaking Bad is like pizza. Even when it's bad, it's still pretty good. So I think I'm still going to watch it, but I don't think they'll be able to offer anything new. At least I'd be very impressed if they did, and I'm hoping that they will. But I don't see the storyline being anywhere near as explosive in this 5th season as it was in say season 3 or season 2.
Well, running its course, I would disagree in the fact that the story hasn't been finished, obviously. As far as it reaching its zenith of entertainment value and its the best it can get in writing and acting, and I think that was like that before season 4 started. But obviously they're making another season because it's a popular show. It's still better than most of the shit that's on TV, despite its shortcomings in season 4. But it does have a singular vision that is being that they are going along with. And there are only like 10 episodes left. So if the show can get more focused on what it's trying to tell, instead of trying to do all this stupid, instead of that and doing all this stupid artsy shit, and just the stupid tropes and the stupid things that they did just do all the time, that they did all the time in season 4. If the show can stay on track and focus, I think it could be pretty entertaining. As far as offering anything new, I don't think there's anything new that the show 4 seasons old can offer with 10 episodes left, besides what the hell's going to happen, and what do you think's going to happen by the end?
I really don't know. It's the show's taken so many hairpin turns over the years that any predictions that I would make, I'd be embarrassed to listen to them after the 5th season had aired. I really have no idea. I think Walt's going to end badly for him. I think that the series is not going to end well for the main character. That's about the only prediction that I would make.
I think that Walt is going to run for president and win, and
and legalize meth.
Yeah, and Marie will be his vice president, and Hank will be Secretary of State, and Breaking Bad will be the best show on TV in season 5.
Okay, so Game of Thrones this week was another very enjoyable episode. How did you feel about it?
Whew. Game of Thrones. Garden of Bones, the episode's called.
Yeah.
One of the most, prescient lines by, what's his name? Jorah.
Yeah.
Once the city opens gates or closes its gates on travelers, the garden grows. It's pretty indicative of the grim content in the episode and the show in general, and it's really starting to get into that, because it's not a happy ending for most characters, as you can assume, and this was really our first serious glimpse into it with the Harrenhal scenes and just little children basically being executed for military intelligence reasons, but it's clear that they don't know anything. And I liked that Tywin came in there and kind of told those idiots to stop being stupid and use these people in a way that is still degrading, but it's not killing them.
Yeah, Tywin also, is a very smart man.
Yeah, it's good to see a smart villain in the show. I mean, Tyrion, I guess you could assume you could call a villain, because I guess the point of view of the show kind of wants you to root for the North, because the Lannisters are crazy. But it's good to see somebody in the show on the wrong side that isn't a bumbling idiot like Joffrey.
Joffrey's scene in this episode was actually made me, in a very, very weird and twisted way, it made me respect him a little bit more.
What?
Just clarify. I'm going to clarify that right now and say that I don't think that making prostitutes beat themselves practically to a pulp is a good thing for a person to do. Just
let me guess.
As a big
let me get
clarification for that.
Let me guess. He's not as much of a child as you thought?
No, that's right. He's not just behaving, like a spoiled kid with too many toys. He's behaving in a sort of, he's doing that what he did there in that scene to get back at his uncle for for getting involved and for trying to control him and trying to tell him what to do. And it's a very sort of calculated political move, and it's making a big statement, which we've never seen from that character before. We've only ever seen him just be a little shit and just be violent and sadistic for no reason. But now it's got kind of political motivations behind it. It makes the character a little bit more interesting, instead of just sort of a bumbling, idiotic shit face.
I would agree generally, but politically, I don't think it was politically. It's more, I mean, I guess you could call it politically. It was more just a power thing that, I'm not a little kid. I can do what I want, and I'm going to fucking destroy your prostitutes here. And, he is the king. He wants everybody to know that. He's already been upstaged a couple times in public by his mother when he got slapped, and by Tyrion in this last episode when he was trying to disgrace Sansa, which was pretty fucked up. And he's holding a crossbow at her. Yeah. And he asks one of his knights to basically strip her naked, which I was upset that didn't actually happen. And you could. What I liked on the episode is that you could see the Hound wasn't all too thrilled with it. So I mean, people are obviously realize that Joffrey is an idiot, and Tyrion is wisely trying to guide him into becoming more of a Renly type king, which I don't think is anywhere near the capacity in Joffrey. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, this episode was one of the darkest for the two Stark daughters. The things that happened to them in this episode were things that were pretty horrifying, and I like the counterpoint to that. With Arya obviously in this horrible, desperate hole in the ground, going through the names of the people she's going to kill, which I thought was an awesome little moment. And
does she learn from Lauren?
Yeah, and there's that, and also Sansa obviously being sexually abused in public. Compared that with Catelyn and Littlefinger's little scene where he says that they're both safe and warm, and he's trying to get an exchange going. There's just in that man, there's just so much. There's just no sort of person left underneath this political mind game little creature that we've got now.
Was it just me, or what's her name? Emily's wife, Marguerite?
Yeah.
How do you say her name? Marjorie?
Marjorie, I think. Just Marjorie. It's just spelled differently.
I don't know how it's said. Somebody will fuck with us. But was it me, or why was his accent changing back and forth in that scene? Was that for effect? Like, was he just like trying to be cute with her or something? But it seemed like his accent was changing. I already hate the way he talks in the show. It sounds so fake, and
it does. It
really bothered me. It really threw me off in this episode.
I didn't notice any changes. I didn't spot anything.
It seemed like it was much darker, or not darker, but lower. When he was talking to her. I don't know if he was affecting his voice intentionally, like if that's the character's intent, or it doesn't seem like they would let him get away with it. Be like, hey, your fucking accent's changing, you dumb fuck. But and I wish they could refilm all his scenes with just a different accent that didn't sound so. I don't know, but he pisses me off.
I've never actually heard his normal voice before, so I don't know what he sounds like.
He is.
To go on an Irish accent.
I think he is Irish.
He is Irish, yeah. But he spent a lot of his life in the UK, so I'm not sure what his voice is like, because the only other thing I've seen him in is obviously is Kelly in The Wire, when he's doing a fairly decent American sort of basic sort of American accent, Baltimore, Maryland accent.
Okay, yeah, obviously. This episode, we finally see Daenerys' long, epic, boring desert journey come to a close when she finally arrives in Karth with her Dothraki horde. And
a horde of about 16 people.
I don't even think it was that many. In one of the most weird and jarring scenes in the entire series. And so it looks like...
You know what that scene felt like to me? It felt like a scene from Doctor Who in sort of the late 70s, when they would... the TARDIS would teleport into this planet, and they would be welcomed by these strange little alien creatures who had this weird way of doing things.
Yeah, the 13 or whatever they were. If it was a 13 or 15, I think it was 13.
13, yeah,
and just the way the guy talked, and it was all like, it
was pretty overdone.
Yeah, and it's all. I don't get what the hell is so special about Daenerys that people aren't just like killing her and taking her dragons, and it seems like the show knows that, and they're trying to find a way around it. And I think her little diatribe about her dragons getting older and coming after Karth first wasn't too convincing for the character for me, because what are you going to do to us right now? I mean, we'll just take and kill your dragons if we want to. So she was obviously like that was her last resort, but she got the. She got Mr. T there to go along with it, so I guess she's okay.
I think that it kind of shows the character as being a very strong person, able to convince people of things very well, because she's...
You are a true Targaryen.
Yeah, because she's done a very good job of making them seem like if they help her, she'll she'll do so much more for them once she becomes queen again, and with the dragons, obviously she'll have so much power. But which, by the way, just out of curiosity, how come she didn't show them? I mean, they were obviously there. She didn't lose them. Maybe they were asleep or whatever. But why didn't she show them to them? I guess because
they were sleeping, and
wouldn't have been as impressive.
I would assume that it's her only it's her only it's her leverage. It's her only leverage, and once she gives it away, once she gives it away. They can do what they please with her. I mean, just like I said, if they see the dragons are going to want the dragons, they'll kill her.
Yeah.
But, eventually she's going to have to show somebody the fucking dragons.
Yeah.
And
maybe it was to save money on CGI for the weird little black smoky monster baby that came out at the end.
Oh, so Melisandre isn't giving Stannis a son.
That?
She's not giving him a son unless, they're going to call that a son. And her theme, I guess you could call it her theme, but they didn't start using it. Well, I guess it could be Stannis' theme too. But her theme is really weird and all like science fiction-y, and it was featured pretty heavily in all of her scenes in this episode. And fuck, that was definitely like the weirdest show or weirdest scene in the show so far. Yeah. I don't know what the fuck that thing's gonna do.
No, obviously neither of us have read the book, so we're not sure what that was or what happened. But,
oh no, we haven't read the books.
No, that's right. But it was.
I wish I could read an entire book series and watch a television series with advanced knowledge of what's going to happen.
No, I'm just saying that so we don't know what it is. We've got no idea what's going to turn out to be and how it's going to affect the plot. But I think that the addition of that is one of the show's most overtly fantastical moments that it's ever had. There's only been
obviously
3 or 4, and that's one of the biggest ones. Which I mean, sometimes you kind of forget that you're watching a fantasy. You just feel like you're watching a period drama about from the 1300s or whatever.
And more important plot pieces that I want to touch on. You had Stannis and Renly arguing and basically declaring war on each other. And that was with this is where the episode left it, with Melisandre giving birth to that fucked up thing. You can see that Stannis is a little and he's a little shooken apart by Renly and his numbers and how much people love Renly. And then we have Robb getting the Lannisters once again with the dire wolves and fucking them up, and he's marching through, and that obviously is what sets Joffrey off to do what he did to Sansa. And it's just further proof that he's fucking evil, and that anybody who watches the show cannot wait to see him beheaded.
Yeah. Just as a little aside, by the way, something I noticed, the guy that plays Stannis, Stephen Delane, and Lena Headey, who plays Cersei, have both been in the movie before, 10 years ago. It was called The Parole Officer, little comedy that came out. It wasn't very big. I just thought that was a fun little fact. A weird way for them to reunite in this massive new show.
Another plot point that we didn't touch on when you did talk about Arya is that Tywin hires her as his new cup holder. So, it looks like she's getting out of there.
I think he might know who she is, and he's playing the long game.
Yeah, you think?
Yeah, I think he's pretty clued up, because he would have. I don't think maybe he didn't ever meet them, but obviously his kids have been there in the first season. They went to Winterfell and they met them all, and they might have drawings of them or whatever. I mean, it's not completely out of the question that he would know who she is, and he's just playing the long game.
Yeah, what I want to know is how they know what everyone else looks like. I mean, I guess you said there are drawings, but it seems like everybody knows who everybody is. And that's something.
She's a lady. I mean, even though she's only a kid, she's a noble person, and she's a prominent figure in the public life. Obviously,
I guess
mostly in the north where she's from. But it seems like Tywin's a well-connected and well-informed person, and I think he probably did that on purpose.
That would that would serve the show pretty well, I think. Also, we had another brilliant scene by Tyrion, when he basically forces, what's his name, Lance or something, that
who
Cersei is fucking as
the
other Lannister,
Lancel, I think his name is.
Yeah, former king's maiden or whatever he was. Great
wine bearer.
Yeah, wine bearer. Tyrion is doing an incredibly good job of getting his sources within, and his little maneuvering is going to serve him very well when it comes to getting the leg up on all the situations happening on his sister and on the king.
Yeah, I mean, every scene with Tyrion is always good, but to see him making little political moves like that, convincing someone to do something, it's always fun to see, because he's a very smart and he's a very sort of sarcastic. He's got a kind of a black comedy view on the world, and the audience, I think, identifies with him so much more than it does most of the other characters, especially the characters in King's Landing. And so every time that there's a scene with him like that, I always love it.
So how about Robb? We get actually getting a little bit of a different look Rob here, kind of flirting with that woman, Florence Nightingale, on the battlefield there. And we haven't really seen too much from Rob thus far on the show, as regarding anything else from him being like a stoic, just leader. And you get to see him. I thought it was good that we get to see a little bit different from him, and hopefully we can get a little bit more character development from him.
Yeah, that was a great scene. I hope that character shows up again, because it was there was some really nice dialogue in that scene. It was very well done.
Okay, why don't we talk about this week's episode of All in the Family?
What?
Edith in this episode, I thought, was insane.
Bro, I don't watch that show.
And her and Archie's their continued chemistry on screen, I thought or think, is incredible. But I mean, Edith getting raped, or almost raped, that was insane, and it was a heartbreaking scene.
Did you know that All in the Family is a remake of a British show?
Yes. Every show is a remake of a British show.
Veep.
Anyway,
as well, by the way.
Fuck Veep. Anyway, let's talk about Mad Men. Go ahead and talk about the entire episode while I talk, or don't say anything at all. Go ahead.
Okay, all right. I think that obviously this episode was pretty impressive, and it was stylistically very different from. I think that the show in the 5th season, or actually sort of progressing from its beginning, ever since maybe season 3, and then through season 4, and now in season 5, it's been making more and more risky stylistic choices as it's gone past. I think that in this episode, it was one of the most dramatic shifts in style from the anything that's come before, having that sort of 3-story over the same period, having that thing going on before. The show's never done anything like that before, and it was very well done.
Stylistically, in the way that the Don scenes played out, it really reminded me of like a season 1, season 2 episode. Just with Don going out on the road, and kind of confronting the person he is at home and with other people, and the way he views other people, like how the Howard Johnson, how it was such a big part of what it meant to be American, and such a representation of the American dream, and how much Don loved it, as opposed to Megan, who's younger and hipper, and this is like whatever, it's just it's a stupid fucking restaurant. It's a, what did she say? It's a place to stop before you get somewhere. Yeah. And that can lead us into another one of our community questions by Dissensions, also known as Jeff. He asks us, basically, it's a long question, but I'll paraphrase it into basically, what the hell did we think about the Megan and Don's dramatic scene in the episode, and whether or not Don was justified in leaving after what Megan said, and whether or not Megan was justified in reacting to him leaving the way she did. And Dave, go ahead.
Well, I think that both characters were justified in leaving, I would say. I think Don was probably he just went sort of basal emotions and just went, I got to get out. He went back to his old ways of Dick Whitman and his old ways of season 1 and season 2, where if something goes bad, he's like, I got to go, I got to leave, I got to get somewhere where I'm not here.
Yeah,
and
I mean, like the way he reacted, the way he's like, okay, that's not me, I'm leaving. Don't remind me of that. And he did the same thing when he did the same thing when he wanted to leave with Rachel in season 1, and he has a history of trying to run away from his problems without thinking about it. Yeah. But it was different to think that as I was watching him drive away, I'm thinking like, he's gonna be like, fuck, eventually, and then drive back, and then like you see it in his face, and then he's like, shit, and then he drives back, and she's gone, and he's worried, and it's all like, have I lost her? And it plays back to what he said to Pete a couple of episodes prior about, not fucking it up, not ruining it, and he's trying his best not to, but he still can't escape who he really is.
That's right. Yeah. Also, I think it was weird to see Don driving again. We don't see him drive very much anymore with living in Manhattan and not having to go home to the burbs every day. Back in
that
season...
scene. Sorry, I'm going to cut. Then you can go ahead. That scene looked terrible. Him and Megan in the car. It just looked terrible.
Green screen in the background. It didn't seem. It
was very distracting. It was very distracting. Go ahead.
But the car, just as an aside, the car was fucking incredible. I couldn't believe that car is just so nice. I want one. But me too. The driving scenes from season 1 and season 2, we had a lot of them where Don would go on a drive to reflect or to get away, and sort of since he's broken it off with Betty, that's not been an option anymore. And I think he was probably just. Yeah, it seemed to me like Don was waiting a long time to go for a drive, and he really wanted to do that, just an excuse to use his nice car and go for a drive somewhere. I think that's something that Don hasn't been able to do ever since leaving Betty and moving to the city. He's not been able to do that, and he really wanted to.
Well, he and Megan drove to Pete's house in the previous episode, but they didn't show anything, obviously. But going out and I'm not really sure of his motivations there. But the most telling scene and most telling line in the episode, and maybe in a long time, was Bert basically telling Don, get your head back in the fucking game. You're fucking it up for all of us. Peggy's not ready for this shit. Yeah. And then you see Don leaning up against the table as everyone else in the office passes him by, basically. And he realizes that he's been on his own little vacation for a while. I forget exactly what Cooper called it, but maybe we're going to see Don getting back to being focused. Yeah, maybe. And hating himself again.
Just going back to the car scene, there was a bit where Don was, obviously because the Peggy bit came first, and you see Don call Peggy, and he's all disheveled, and he's in a payphone, and then when we see Don driving, he's lighting a cigarette with a cigarette lighter from the car, and that was I felt to me like a cool little red herring, like, oh shit, is he going to set himself on fire or something like that? But that was I just thought it was a brief thing, but I thought it was done pretty well. It was pretty cool.
An interesting thing about Don in a panic and his hair all disheveled calling Peggy is that he wouldn't call anybody else like that. And you saw how he talked to Megan's mom. He was trying to keep it together, but in front of Megan or in front of Peggy, he was he acted like he was feeling, because Peggy is one of the people who really know him better than anybody else there besides Megan, and she's been there when Anne died, and she knows him really well, and I think that's the only person that Don would really trust to call like that, and not really try to sugarcoat it or filter it.
Yeah. So what about Roger's segment? How'd you feel about that?
What I liked noticed, I did like, but what I noticed is that, like I said with the scene at the end with Cooper telling Don off, was that you see Roger going back to being his happy self, and him and Jane are gonna divorce, and he's gonna be happy and cheery again, and he's going back to how he used to be, and so is Don. So you saw how the characters had split, and then you saw how Roger was becoming, more depressed and more, unsure of himself. And now that he's going to be free of his wife, he's kind of, doing his 360, and so is Don. And I thought that was a notable segment of the episode.
I liked how
go ahead. The scene after he took LSD with everybody in the apartment was very reminiscent of The Sopranos when he was looking in the mirror.
Yeah,
and Don was talking to him. It was very, like I said, very Sopranos reminiscent. It felt like I was watching that show, and the dream sequences have become more frequent. And that wasn't really a dream, but it was, it was.
Yeah, I liked how in this episode there was a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? Where sort of the thing happened at the beginning and then it was kind of echoed at the end. There was the whole Peggy's boyfriend.
The threads,
Peggy's boyfriend wishing her a shitty day, and then at the end Roger says it's going to be a beautiful day, and then when Roger says let's when he talks to Don about going to Howard Johnson's, and then Don ends up going, and Roger's like, oh fuck, I'm going to have such a terrible weekend, and then Roger ends up being the happiest one out of all three of them at the end of it. I thought that was pretty cool. How it was sort of subverted the notion that divorce is always a traumatic and horrible experience. In theory, the person that should have been the most upset at the end of the weekend was Roger, and the person that should have been the happiest was, I guess neither of the other two really had all that happy of an ending. But it subverted the idea of divorce being terrible, which was pretty cool.
All right, let's talk about the individual segments. Like you said, we had Don and Megan going to Howard Johnson with Roger, but they never interacted there. And Roger doing his whole LSD trip, and Peggy giving hand jobs in the theater. Which what the fuck is she doing giving this dude a hand job? Is this like another power play by her?
It actually really reminded me. I've been watching 6 Feet Under recently, and it really reminded me of this. How I don't think you've seen it, have you? You haven't seen the 6 Feet Under?
No.
Yeah. Well, anyway, in the second season, there's a scene where this character Brenda sort of goes on a bit of a sexual bender and does that sort of stuff, and it felt really similar. Sort of they're both characters where they feel like they're trapped, and the only way that they can release is sexually.
Yeah, and you could tell that her relationship with Abe isn't really all that satisfying, and that she's just she's trying to just have a little bit of fun. And then by the end of the episode, she's calling him over there to fuck him. She always needs him, as she says, which is pretty shitty for her to say.
Yeah. She always needs him when it's convenient.
Yeah. We had Roger and Jane going to this dinner, which Roger didn't want to do at all. And Jane was just being her normal bitchy self. Obviously, you can blame her. And they have a pretty crazy experience, and one of the most unique sequences in the history of the show. Roger seeing a man with half dark hair and half gray hair, and visualizing at himself in the mirror, as previously referenced with the Don sequence. And him and Jane coming to a high epiphany about their marriage and the fact that it doesn't work. And they come to a consensus that they're going to end it. And that seems to very much please Roger, because who wants to be married anyway? And then we had Don and Megan with their crazy scene, and Megan telling Don to go call his mother, which made me drop my mouth. I don't know about you.
Yeah, that was I think for her it was more of a slip of the tongue than a actual...
Yeah, obviously. It's just something she said when she was upset. Because, Don's trying to control her ever more, and she's way more independent than Betty could have ever been. And it all ties into the whole desire that Don has to control people, like with him chasing her around the house, and earlier in the season with him domineering her sexually, and him needing to be in control, which is a huge theme in the entire series. And it seems to be the huge theme in his marriage with Megan, which is going to be something that we're going to have to see play out, and how much she can deal with that shit. And as she said, every time they fight, she said specifically that every time we fight, it diminishes this. And the way she says this more is it's still in the early stages, and they haven't really come to terms with the differences and the bad things that you see in a relationship after a while, because numerous studies have been done, obviously, on limerence and puppy love on people and how long they last, and you kind of you look past faults and imperfections in people, and you don't really gauge them. And there comes a point in every relationship, no matter how great it starts, no matter how much love there is, and how much chemistry and how much sexual chemistry there is, you eventually realize the other person is not perfect, and obviously different people handle that different ways, and that is coming to a head with Don and Megan.
Yeah, I don't think their relationship is necessarily doomed, but it's got some kinks that are going to either get worked out or not worked out. But I don't think that it's essentially, just by the nature of the characters. I don't think it has to be doomed.
No, I don't think it's doomed either. I think Don has a different attitude in this relationship than he had with Betty. I think they're both determined to make it work, and I think it can. But obviously, we're going to have to see this. We're going to have to see this play out, and I think it's interesting to see it play out, more organically and more naturally than we did with Don and Betty. Because when the show first started, they'd been married for quite some time, and it took a while for their problems to really start. So we're going to see if Don and Megan's problems start earlier in the relationship.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's one thing that I'm looking forward to in season 5 a lot. Well, that just about wraps it up for our show this week. Thanks very much for listening. Tune in next week when we'll be talking about all the shows again. Parks and Rec will be again. We'll hopefully be able to talk about a couple episodes of Veep as well, which I've been enjoying. But that's it for us today. Thanks very much, and goodbye. We'll play you out on our signature theme song.
I love you.